Good evening and welcome to the shop here in beautiful downtown Canterbury. It is a beautiful night and a very special night here in the shop because we have a return special guest. Some of you already recognize this guy over here. It is the two-time Artist Laureate of New Hampshire. He has numerous pieces in the museum. You love this, right?
Oh yeah, build it up.
In the Currier Museum of Art in Manchester, New Hampshire. You got to check that out. He's been a founding member of the New Hampshire Furniture Masters Association, of which I am also a proud member. And he's just an amazing person, furniture maker, and friend. He lives right around the corner, and we're so glad to have him back. David Lamb.
Oh, thanks, Tom. So good to see you. We're a mile apart, and it's great to have a friend like Tom.
I thought you were going to say, go on, go on.
That's quite enough.
All right. Well, the reason we have this pleasure is Dave is actually here teaching, and he's teaching a course on making an exquisite settee. This is an example of one of the legs that he just breezed out like nothing. And all the students have been following along doing this. So, needless to say, we have here in the shop a live studio audience. And it's always good to have a live studio audience. So what we want to talk about tonight is relief carving. Dave actually has a very deep well of experience in all types of woodworking. We've featured some of his portfolio before. So he and I just chatted about what would be nice to highlight this time around. And we decided that we would talk about something related a bit to the course, but take it in a little different direction and talk about relief carving.
Yeah.
And that's not, relief carving is not like when you just go,
right? No, it's quite the opposite.
Just really in a nutshell, what is relief carving?
Relief carving is where your carved detail stands up from a surface.
Okay.
And it's usually an extractive process. So you're removing material, but for instance, if I could just pick this up.
Yes, you may.
You may do relief carving on turnings, leg parts, chair parts, things like that, or panels like this or like this, and it all depends on, how you do it depends on where it's going to be. Like a case like this could be 8 feet up in the air, so it's got a different approach than if it's a chair that's like right in front of you. So
awesome.
There are a lot of different things to consider when you're doing it.
Right, and I have been a long time admirer of this exquisite detail that David has included in a lot of his work, a lot of varieties and forms, and we thought it would be best to kick off this dive, this kind of brief dive into relief carving by showing a few examples from David's portfolio, and he can say a few things about them. And then we want to come back and get a little better understanding of the process that goes into relief carving in general. So how about we get to the first photo, and Dave's going to talk us through.
This is a very classic library table I made for a lady, and if you look carefully at the base, there's a lot of carving. We have got two different places with two different approaches, the turn columns and that stretcher, as well as the leg. And when you're designing something like this, you have to think in terms of, what the thing is. So for the post, it seems to make logical sense to me to have a vine that can wrap around it. My theme here was a morning glory. So that really played into that whole idea of vines, and then you can have leafage and flowers and the vine itself. And then on the leg, because it's such a long, narrow space that is recessed a little bit, so it's like in a panel, that's a wild iris known as a blue flag. And they're just a lot of details, but they make sense for the space. So I wanted to come up with 5 different flower patterns. So it all depends on how it's presented on the table. If I'm doing a flat, full-on view, or somewhat of a side view, or angled, skewed view. So that's why we have these different things, and that also helps break up any repetition in a pattern. Concurrent with this, I will do different leaf patterns. So as I'm laying my thing out on the wood, the turned wood is still in the lathe, I will place the patterns that I generate from this little sample on the leg, trace it out, and go from there. So each post is different from the next one.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Yeah, but it makes them look so organic and
They look,
a real
very
garden
organic,
almost,
and
like,
they relate, but yet they're different.
yeah, that's awesome.
That table, again, has the morning glory theme, just a different application. It's generally a single pedestal post. You can see the cluster of leaves down along the base, which makes a great visual start for the vines to come up out of the leaves on the bottom.
That vine that's on there, that's not applied, that is
Carved from the
achieved-
solid.
Right. So I think a lot of people, when they see those vines on there, they don't realize that it's a relief carving, which
Right.
means...
Which means you have to turn the post or the leg or the part just slightly thicker than you really want it to appear, because you have to incorporate the thickness of all the carvings. And then you're removing, like in this table base, you're removing like 95% of the wood just to be able to get that depth and keep the proportion of the main column the way you envision it, what your plan was. Otherwise, it can look too skinny, like you took off too much material.
Yeah, and then the vine pops out.
And then the
like
vine
stands
pops out.
Yeah. We have a question in the gallery. How do you get the field of the column so clean and smooth if all that's taken away?
Okay, well, I have this little router jig. So I have a small, like laminate trimmer router, and I have a base for it that has a concave kind of thing, so it kind of sets on the column. And even though that tapers, I don't need a tapered base. It's just something that can cradle the piece pretty well. And I draw this pattern on, and it's dark enough where I can see it, and I just set my router bit down and just kind of go back and forth. It's a pretty time-consuming process, but it maintains a certain depth. So you do have to be careful about your sequence because all of a sudden you can run out of support material. And so sometimes you're skipping a section just so you maintain support material to be able to hold it. And then you take your tools, carve away those little webs that are holding things up, and then scrape the whole thing and sand it and all that. So it's a lot of work, but it controls depth.
When you're doing it, I imagine you don't get bored. Are you anticipating what's going to happen?
You're not bored because you're on your toes all the time, because it's so easy to get, this cloud of dust, and you're hoping you're not going through a leaf that you wanted to save,
There's too much at
you're on
stake.
there's a lot at stake, yeah.
I can see that.
Okay, so this is a cabinet that has very little carving on the exterior. It's what I call the black ice cabinet, among other names, I guess. But it's a fractal birch pattern, dyed black. Tom was very involved with that project, with the
remember that.
coloring. That was really...
That was very stressful to spray that black on there.
when it's beautiful and it's gold and it's natural color, to put black on it was like, are you kidding me? But we did it, and it was very successful.
That's awesome.
And there's just a little hint of carving on the tops of the legs where it's the largest diameter. And then, but inside, you open those doors, and you can see the interior panel there that has some nice carved detail, and then once we get a little closer look, there we go. So this shows you how much detail you can get on a panel with a relatively shallow field.
Tell about that, what that carving is about.
Well, the real name of the cabinet is the Four Seasons of Acadia. So this was done as a celebration for the 100th anniversary of Acadia National Park. And if you're familiar with the park, this was originally established quite early in the, 100 years ago, over 100 years ago now, in early 20th century, by the wealthy elite that had money and pretty much owned the whole island. And in the process of their ownership, they built these carriage roads, and they had these wonderful stone arches, and it's very, it's a beautiful area. So this carving was intended to capture the sense of what Acadia is about. Not only is it on the coast, but this is more of an inland kind of scenery with the bridge, with the mountains in the background, and the flora that is common around there, with pine and oak and maple and trillium and all these different things that make it such a special place.
You become quite the horticulturist.
Well, you have to learn these things. You're always looking for new subjects to carve, or something interesting. Now this is a wonderful piece for, again, that lady with the morning glory. We also had a theme of a flowering crab. So that's what that relief panel is between the drawers and the mirror. Up in the corner
there it is.
are morning glories also. And you're getting a lot of detail, and it's all about the way you turn the leaf, the undercutting, the interest, and the fact that it's not perfectly symmetrical, but it's balanced at the same time.
Yeah. Look at all that's going on visually in that one little section of that piece. You've got an incredible veneer work with your crotch birch and the lattice, and
The lattice, yeah.
that was probably one of the most
That was
combination pieces,
that was a
right?
crazy piece. It was the base of it, which we won't see, but it was an elliptical chest of drawers.
Oh my gosh.
And it had 15 drawers in it, with the central section. They were regular drawers, but the ones on the end, because of the elliptical shape, they were actually triangular, and they pivoted on
Right.
2 pins.
Oh, I do remember that one.
And so you had curved drawer parts, and it was just,
That was in your shop for a
Nuts.
little while.
yeah, it was a long job.
And then you get the question, people always ask, how long did that take you to make, Dave?
Oh yeah, a lifetime. The answer is always a lifetime, because
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
accumulated knowledge. Right?
Exactly. I mean, that had everything in it, like a lot of different directions that you went in. Like you added a lot of kind of signature elements
Yeah,
over the
and
years.
she was very determined to have lattice again. I made her a secretary, and there was lattice work on the top, and she was determined to get that to show up again. So it showed up another time as inlay, but with this one as a pierced, carved element.
Yeah.
So she's been a wonderful client. 36 pieces later, how can you?
Holy.
What an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, that's an incredible collection. Hopefully those will get seen in a museum one day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. Someday.
All right, so we're on to the
All
next
right. So
photo.
now we're on to the
What is that? Oh,
New Hampshire Secretary. That's at
This?
the Courier.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was the lifetime kind of commission where the museum commissioned me to make this thing, and they just kind of like, give us what you got. That kind of an attitude, and not small and petite, but these rooms are like 16-foot ceilings, if not 20. I mean, they're massive, they're big rooms, and so you wanted a piece to stand out, and not feel lost. So I thought, okay, they're going to get a chest on chest or a secretary or something, and they went for it, and it was a great process of developing everything full stop with the fractal veneer work, and then you can see on the top crown aspect.
Well, first we open the doors.
Oh yeah, we open the doors, and
That's pretty amazing.
yeah,
to
just
see
a nice
that.
sort of a theater kind of interior We were going to do drawers, but plans changed as cost became a reality, so the drawers didn't happen. But it's a very nice secretary for storage, just the same. Beautiful material.
So the relief carving.
The relief carving is in the frieze work that goes around. And I do have a sample of it here too, and we can address that later. But what was interesting with this was it was a curved. The whole front of the cabinet is curved. So I had to steam bend the material, which is birch. And birch is a joy to carve. We settled on a maple leaf theme. So we have the little, what do you call the seeds that twirly? I can't think of the name. There's a specific name, but
I know what you
whirligigs, something like that. So those are fun, little surprise things. And one way to develop a rich design is to have overlaying leaves, and some of them twist one way or the other and create different shadows. Try to make it look as natural as possible.
You did it.
Yeah.
That looks awesome.
And of course it wraps around to the other side, and these things are full blind dovetailed in the corners too. So
There's, again, look at what's going on there. You've got those, would almost go unnoticed, but when you look closer, that other signature element of those little Gothic inlay arches on the cove molding.
which my wife Janet does. She does all that cutting and fitting, and
wow. Well, she
say,
should
honey,
get a
this is
huge
what we need. You got to
shout
do
out.
it.
We could go on and on.
Oh, we
right?
could.
And
we
that was
could.
just a tiny little sampling of
my
the
goodness.
portfolio.
Yeah.
So people should, before we just get in this, if people want to see more of your portfolio, your website.
My website, davidlambfurniture.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, it is kind of a treat to realize that you brought the study piece for that last secretary, the
Yep.
frieze on the top. Were you just looking at those?
Yeah.
So,
It's right here.
and it doesn't look hugely developed here.
This was a sample of bending the material. That was a process of research, and so I thought, well, I'm going to use this piece of birch and carve a sample of the pattern. So it's really not that deep. This is like 5/16 of an inch deep, and you can get a tremendous amount of depth in it.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see the shadows, and it's all about form and it's all about shadow. And you actually want to exaggerate things a little bit. It's almost like approaching a cartoon where you understand what a maple leaf looks like, but some of the way it wouldn't actually roll quite like that in reality. Sometimes it does when they're dried and off the tree, but when they're living, they're quite flat. But this gives them a lot of form, and it makes it very readable. And there was one time when I thought, oh, this is a real formal piece. Maybe I should sand the carvings a little bit. And it's like, you don't want to do that because you lose the texture. Adds so much character.
Yeah, you're right.
To a carving, and then the background will be scraped. So you start off by well, let's look at this one.
Okay.
So we can look at that piece of pine right there.
So now we're transitioning to the process of just a little taste.
Just
of the
a little
process
taste, yeah.
of
So
how you develop one of these.
So I start my designs by little tiny sketches in a sketchbook, and just a quick little sketch for a concept, and then it gets larger, and then you show the client what they want or what you think they want, and it keeps developing and changing a little bit. And this is a full size, one of 8 panels in this house. So there was literally 50 feet of carvings. And in that process, I took an element from this particular panel and did a little mock-up carving in pine. And the actual piece was done in pine.
Oh, wow.
Which is fun if your tools are super sharp. If your tools aren't really sharp with pine, it almost collapses the grain structure.
Yeah.
I mean, it needs to whistle. It needs to be very sharp.
I want to hold it up by the drawing
Okay.
to see how it. relates. So this is the actual size. Wow.
Yeah, this is the actual size.
So you can actually see how.
So you can see it,
started.
and you know, when you do things, you do realize certain things. I changed a few of the leaves because I just felt, well, it wasn't laying out the way I thought. And some of these practice things, you can really get a sense of, all right, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. And then sometimes you can pull out the clay again and play with clay before you play with wood. Because once you take away wood, it's gone. With clay, you don't like it, you just crunch it up and roll it out and cut it out and put it on again. And that answers a lot of questions. It might seem like a laborious process, but it really does answer a lot of questions that you'd be glad you had answered when you're in the process of doing it.
I should say, interject, that this is just a little sample of that project you just mentioned of doing 50 feet of, what element is that? That's
That was a frieze.
frieze around the top of the room. I didn't know if it was called a frieze in a room. And we, as part of our field trip on our Epic weekends, if you're coming to that, we're going to the Sandboard Mills Farm where this carving, we'll see it in one of the buildings. We'll go in and we'll see it. It's beautifully lit. And Dave actually has some photographs of how it looks now.
Yeah, so these
finished.
are, smaller scale, of course, but these are half of the panels. And there was a theme that I had to
Is that okay?
develop based on what the customer wanted. It was a male-female thing and an agricultural theme. So it really gave me a lot of creative opportunity.
And then you said our finishing friend.
Yes, Mark Adams. So the depth of this carving is about a ½ inch. But you have to realize that this is about 8 to 9 feet up in the air. And you could be standing 30 feet away from it, and you want to be able to read, understand what you're looking at. So to emphasize shadows and the sense of depth and everything, we employed our friend Mark Adams, who lives in New Hampshire, not Mark Adams of school fame, but this is another guy who's an architectural wood finisher and conservator, to manipulate the carvings in a way with shading, whether it's bleach or subtle tints, not of color, but of like shadow kind of things, to enhance what is there. Because if you've got carvings that you're looking at something that might be a ½ a mile in distance, if you're looking out the window at a scene, this is kind of the same idea you're trying to project. What do you see when you look out and you see distance? You see a haze. So that's what a lot of this bleaching was done, to create the haze, and a little bit on the mountains out in the distance to create that sense of depth. And then up close, just a little bit of things to get the up close detail to say, oh, this is right in front of you. So
It's so great. I mean, you can walk around that room and just stare and discover other little elements. Just now I'm looking here at the detail, and like you see the little sugaring bucket over there.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Is that a sugar bucket on there?
no,
that's a bark.
that's
Oh,
the bark of the
rolling
birch
back.
tree. Yeah, I do have
Oh, that's
sugaring
so
buckets.
cool.
Oh, over here I got sugaring
yeah.
buckets.
Oh
and
yeah, look at that.
the oxen and the sugar
The
house.
sugar house. I mean, it's just great.
And the great thing about Mark's work, I should say, is you hardly would know he was even there, because it's so subtle,
Yeah.
you didn't know he even had anything to do with it.
Right.
And it's that effective.
Yeah, I can see it. It's just beautiful. What a combination. So, we've seen kind of the drawing and your work there. What about these?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe a few swipes of a chisel.
Sure. So I mentioned carving on turnings, and so here's one it's darkened up a lot. Some of these things are like 15 or more years old. So they've developed a bit of a patina. But I really like this leg because it's got a daylily pattern for flowers. But as you go down towards the foot, it gets more linear. And to me, it's reminiscent of fluting and reading in old architecture and old furniture. You think columns on these formal buildings from, Grecian and Roman type things. They got that idea of reading and fluting from those ancient people of Iraq and on those old rivers by physically gathering reeds, river reeds, binding them up. So that's why they call this reading. So I'm kind of going back to its origin concept of using plant matter as inspiration for that. I really like that.
It works so well.
That idea. And then this little chair leg just shows you, that you got depth. You got to start out thicker than what you're going to end up with. And so this was just a little sample to go through the process and help determine, what that depth should be or shouldn't be. And maybe it's a little less deep up here. And, there's only so far you can go with a router sometimes.
Yeah.
Or sometimes there's just no room for it. So you got to do it all by hand, but
that's sweet.
Always a challenge.
Yeah.
Always a challenge.
So just I know we don't have time. This has been so great, but to go very briefly into the sequence of carving out a piece that has that depth and movement. What is your sequence?
Sure. My sequence first is transferring the pattern to the wood, and I just use carbon paper, old school carbon paper, and tape it down to and I just trace it. I don't use a number 4, but I use a fairly stiff pencil and just go over that, and it transfers very well. Here's some of the remnants of that. And then once that's there, I draw it. This has like a border that is part carved into it, so it scoops down to the base level, and then I just go in with a router. It set with a depth, and I go around as close to the pattern as I dare, constantly renewing, removing the chips and the dust, and it's kind of a messy, kind of a unpleasant job because you got your glasses, you got your earphones and mask and all that, and you're going through it. But then once you get all that through, the base is fairly uniform, and then it's a fairly laborious task of what I call punching out, and that's just defining the different leaf shapes or stems, just going around, punch it out, and then remove the material. And you do that all around to either you're all the way down here, or in the case of what I was just doing, down to the next level. And those are constantly changing, depending on what the look is that you're going for. Leaves will be further away than something larger like an apple, and then branches want to undulate. And it's undercutting, it's creating facets, all these little things that reflect light and shadow.
That's great. Wow. Well, that was a great little introduction, and I bet people are itching for more. You can also look at some of David's work on the New Hampshire Furniture Masters website, which I love to reference, and that is FurnitureMasters.org, and you can look up his portfolio.
His portfolio?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lots of great furniture makers on there with a varied style, and you'll probably find some that don't appeal to you, but some that really do. And I think you'll love to check that out. Also, our website at epicwoodworking.com. We'd love to have you join us over there. You could just to check in or to move in to the neighborhood, we love to have you part of our community there. And you can see that at epicwoodworking.com. Check out the courses, but the online courses, you don't have to be here to get a very similar experience and to be in a community with other woodworkers who share your interest and passion for this amazing craft. And thank you, Dave.
Hey,
It's
thanks for
always a
having me here,
pleasure.
Tom. It's been great.
Thank you again for being part of this. We just love opening the shop to you like this, and it means so much that you'll spend some time on your couch or wherever you're watching. So on behalf of the camera lady and myself, we look forward to seeing you next time, right back here on Shop Night Live. Good night, everybody.